Yes? We have about 4 minutes. Okay, Owning Your Fire, May 10th, 2017. So, a little bit of admin. We're going to change the online interface. I'm going to go to a different service. I've been talking to Elaine, and I think it'll be more user friendly. And because what essentially we're going to do is create a private group on YouTube that only you guys will have the access for, and then everything will be there instead of having to try and find. It's like right now, you get a link, you click the link, you go to it. This way, you'll have them all and be able to see them all. You won't have to go find the links. So that should be easier. It should be, nicer interaction. So my plan is we're going to test it out over the next week or so and have it in place and ready for next workshop. If I think it's necessary, if I think it needs it, I'll do a little tutorial kind of something. It shouldn't be, because people know how to use YouTube. And it's not, yeah, I know, but that's always with you. I'm sorry. Well, you just sabotage it. That's not the same thing as not knowing how. Okay? I did. I did. It's not the same thing. Not the same thing at all. Shh, knock wood. Well, and we can't laugh, right? So it should be easier to find things. It should be easier to see the thing that you want. And I will be able to even put the little description, so we'll be able to say this is the one where we did such and such. I'm not going to write a big long thing, but I may do 3 bullet points or something saying this is the one where you did persecution karma, that kind of stuff. And
you're joking on it already.
Yeah. So, yeah, and then when we switch over in January to all remote, thank you, to all remote, then the video will be there all the time, easier, right? So for the questions, then, once we have that interface, the option to text is always there. And then if you're on remote, if it's live, once in Jan, not now because I'm not in front of the computer now, but once we go to this new system in January when we switch over to all remote, you'll be able to ask your question verbally if you want to. You don't have to, but you'll be able to. So that would be kind of nice. Yes, you would need a headset. Right? And as long as your computer, because if you don't have a headset, you can get a feedback thing, and that does nasty stuff. You will still be able to text it if you want. You'll learn when you get there.
I just never thought of texting on YouTube, but that's fine.
Yeah, it's always been there. Text on YouTube. If you're in a recording, it's not there if you're just playing a video, right? Because that's not the live part. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. And what we could, depending on if I think it needs it, we'll do something where, you can tune in and figure it out. Or I might say, okay, come 10 minutes early if you want to have a look around. And, we'll see. I haven't had a chance to play with it much yet. I mean, we did shows on Blab. That was hysterical. If you ever tuned into when we did the video show on Blab, and what that was there was a Twitter stream for the show where people talked constantly, and then if they wanted to ask a question, you could let them come in and sit in a video window and ask a question. So I had to have, Judy managing one set and Mark managing just the video, just the stream of chat, because there was so much of it. It was mind-boggling how much people would talk about what you were saying and going on. I'm going, while you're saying it. Oh yeah, because they all have their 2 cents, right? And it was like a Twitter feed, so they're used to just voicing their opinion, and it was just constant chatter.
Talk, not voice chat.
No, it was text. It was Twitter. It was like tweets, right? So they would just have remarks all the time, and I can't be constantly reading that. It would just slow everything down too much. So I focused on what I was doing, and then if Mark thought there was one I needed to pay attention to, he'd feed it to me over here so I could actually look at it. Because most of it was just they're talking. It's not necessary that I even see it. Right? Yeah.
I think about Twitter, it's not necessary.
Yes.
But it has its place.
Although, I was very interested because I started looking at, following authors, and J.K. Rowling is a really interesting woman.
Yeah.
And boy, is she outspoken. Like, she just, tells it like it is, and this is what I think, and she and Trump have actually got into it on Twitter a couple of times.
She's intelligent.
Yeah. So, because she's attacked him a couple of times, and he's, basically called her names, would be the short answer. And she just takes him on. And wow. I'm going, okay, good for you. I want to grow up and be you. Well, because...
billions of dollars allows you to do.
Or just deciding that's the role you want. And I'm joking when I say that because I have no interest in taking on somebody political. It's not my thing. And I have no interest in talking to him. That's not my thing either. I just thought, she just took him on, and I went, you go, girl.
I get the impression of an intelligent person and a little kid with his fists
Stomping.
and his face turning red as he's holding his breath.
Right?
Except he never does stop.
Probably a little red hair.
But it's the red face from.
Right? So anyway, I was entertained by her just sheer chutzpah, and I'm not interested in that. I'm more interested in writing things, so it would be a big distraction for me. It was just go ahead, take that on. That's just interesting.
She probably wouldn't have taken it on if she hadn't written books.
Right? I posted on Facebook. There was a little video that was about her life, and it was very interesting.
But she also knew she had status.
Yeah. She's come through some stuff. I see sometimes people when they survive certain things, they just I just don't care. I will say it like it is. I will do whatever I want to do. For me, it's I wouldn't take that on unless I was going to really take it on and go places with it. I'm not interested in just having a slanging match. It doesn't.
Is that on your Facebook?
Yep.
A while back or
Not that long ago. I don't think so. It was a share, somebody had posted it. And the yeah. The header on the video said when she was 30, she tried to commit suicide. So that it isn't obvious it's about J.K. Rowling till you get to the end. So we are going to do fundamental safe stuff. Safe. Very fundamental safe stuff. It's spring. Everything's going bonkers. And it was funny because on the way over I said to Judy, we're going to do some fundamental safe stuff. And I said, how often have we done that? And yet here we are, we're doing it again. She said, it's always that. I thought, good for you, you're right. It is always that. And yes, it's always that. Aimed different ways. And
our onions are a bit peeled.
yes. And that's true, and that's part of the, people say, you change the CDs at night. I have the elves that work for Keebler making cookies in the daytime going around changing the CDs at night. It's their night job. But it's because you change, and so you are capable of hearing different things, so you have a different experience of it when you do it. And every time we go look at safe or child selves or whatever we're looking at, we're going to see different things. We're going to be capable of releasing different things. So I think we're going to start in utero. I think that's what I'm seeing. But before we go there, let's think about what safe means to you. So I think for most people, if you say safe, that means nothing can hurt me. And that's just not true because you can't control that. So if you try to define safe as nothing can hurt me, it's an automatic unmeetable requirement. You're going to push yourself into freeze and hide. Or rebel, same thing, freeze and hide, rebel. Because a sentence could hurt you. A bad smell could hurt you. A good smell could hurt you if it has a bad association. So think about your capacity to protect yourself so that if something does hurt you, you're able to take care of yourself, you're able to recover, you're able to deal with it, right? Because if you try to say, okay, nothing's ever going to go wrong. I'll never get a flat tire, nobody will ever insult me, nobody will ever hurt my feelings. Like it's not going to work. That's not how the world works. It's not how manifesting works. Because you're aiming at an outcome. You're aiming at things that other people are doing. If you understand, like somebody could insult you or say something hurtful, how you experience it, that's the part that you can deal with. That's the part that you can shift and you can change and make different. Okay? And for all the work you do, someone could still say something that, that feels like it's painful. And it's allowing yourself to say, okay, well, then, that's painful. I know what I'm feeling. So now I can take care of me. I can comfort myself. I can deal with the trigger. I can deal with, what's going on in me that I'm reacting. Because I'm the only one. I'm the only one who decides what hurts me. They can have whatever they got going on. They got their own stuff going on. Even what they say to me is not about me, it's about them. It's why would I be hurt by it? Right? If, sometimes people are lashing out in anger. Sometimes they're lashing out, because you've challenged their self-image. They're lashing out because of whatever they got going on. And you can recognize that. You can say, well, they're just lashing out. That doesn't mean it won't hurt you. You can still feel hurt. So it's the trust in yourself that you will, manage your emotions, take care of you, and do what you need to do to feel safe, to recover, to heal your wounding. Right? And that's the key to having the capacity to feel safe. Because if your definition of safe is about what other people are doing, like that's, one, it's codependent. Two, it's an unmeetable requirement. If you're not bringing it back to what you feel, then you can't control it. Right?
That sounds very much like resilience. Do you have a definition of resilience?
I haven't thought about it.
Because you can be hurt, but if you trust that you can care for yourself, then you can.
Yep. Well, and I guess what pops into my head when you say the word resilience is almost like, the rubber band that can keep on stretching. The thing is, if you do that enough, you're going to break it. After a while, it has exhaustion. I think there's the capacity to withstand, or the capacity to endure. And it's not about the enduring. It's about the recovery. Right? And so resilience doesn't say recovery to me necessarily. It says more enduring. And that may be an interpretation. It's telling the truth about what you feel and what you need so you can get catharsis. If you are wounded, it's not to accept that. It's to say, okay, so now I'm wounded. Now how do I release this? How does it go? Right? And just because somebody's thinking that, the key thing when you're wounded is to recognize that the person who was wounded is not who you are anymore. Because having had that experience has now changed you. You're now a different person. And a huge part of releasing wounding is to let go of the person you were. Every experience you have evolves you, right? And what we tend to want to do when we've experienced a wound is we want to go back to the unwounded state, and you can't do that. You can go forward to the healed state. It's if you try to go back to who you were before you were wounded, if you're trying to like you're denying the experience, and you're denying the effect the experience had on you as a person. So it's about recognizing you've been affected, you've been changed, you now bring that wisdom forward. Letting go of the woundedness is about letting go of who you were with compassion, with love, and understanding who you are. Right?
So you bring the wisdom of what you've learned through being wounded.
Yes.
You bring that wisdom forward and release the rest.
Yes. And it's about letting go of that lost innocence, really. Right?
Breathing it.
Yep. All of that. You have to do the whole grief cycle. Andrew has a book called Wounded. It's just not out yet. So we have challenges sometimes, from wounding that's occurred in the past, especially when you're little. Because when you're little, you don't want to admit the threats are around you because you're a dependent and you feel like you don't have a choice. So when you go back to heal those wounds, part of the deal is to actually connect with the fact that they've occurred, because the little kid is going, la, 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 no, I'm fine, it's all good, didn't happen, everybody loves me, rah, rah, kumbaya. And so even when if you can look back from that adult place, you may not even see it, because your perception of what happened is altered by what the child put in place to protect themselves from knowing. Right? What can be useful to do that is to use timeline. So what you do with timeline is you float up above the line of time, and you go back over and you look from there. You don't go into the moment, you look from the observer place, because then you're going to see it differently because you're not in it. And all of a sudden you're going, oh, that happened, right? And you're looking from the view of now. If you go back to what the child saw, they've already distorted their view. Right? Yes?
I don't think I ever felt love from my parents.
Probably not. Because if you think about what love actually is, which is unconditional acceptance, approval, love, in order for them to truly love you, they would have to love themselves. And, who's got that? Right? And we're constantly growing our ability to love ourselves. And we've been at it for how long? And you'll still find places where, you've got hitches and things like that. And we go after them when we find them, of course. The thing is, they never did any of this stuff. Can you imagine? If you think for a moment, like what their self-image was and how they called themselves wrong. Wow. So how could they possibly give you unconditional acceptance even? And say, you're perfect as you are.
And even when they loved and said they loved, it was tainted.
Well, because they don't know how.
Because you, as a child, you knew they were lying, but
Yes.
you couldn't allow yourself to know that, because that would mean
You're too vulnerable. Yeah, you're too vulnerable.
So
You're a dependent.
learned that love meant Daddy didn't hit you when he was drunk or whatever.
And children are really clever about understanding what's going on, except then they put the coping mechanisms in place to alter what they know so that they can pretend it's all okay. Because what are they going to do? Leave? Right? They're dependent. And so this makes them feel very vulnerable. So they alter what they know so they don't have to feel that pain. And so you can look back at it and go, wow, that was a mess. And even, good intentions. The story I said about when we moved house, like, it didn't occur to me to explain to the kids what was going on. Why would I tell a 1-year-old that we were moving? You just bring them. And yet they would have felt usurped. They would have felt all kinds of things. I can see that now. I didn't see it then. Right? It was buckle them into the car seat. Go where you're going, Right? And so it's so much of this is they're just living their lives. It's not like, it's not like they're beating you with a stick every day. They're doing the best they can. The thing is, the truth is, they couldn't love themselves. They couldn't. And so they could not give you that safe feeling of love. They would have loved you in whatever way they were capable of. And you would have taken that and turned it into all kinds of programs. Right?
And not only the love, if they didn't feel they were safe, there's no way we would feel we were.
Oh, no way. And I don't as I've learned, like even in the beginning when I first learned about the limbic system and all this concepts of safe and stuff, and I kind of looked around and went, nobody feels safe. There's no way. There's no way they feel safe. How would they? How could anybody?
But what you said about being able, the safe of being able to know how to react, that is your quintessential heroine, who's been trained, and you feel safe with them because they know how to react, even if you don't.
Yes. That is an archetype for hero, yes.
Yeah, so.
Their confidence inspires you to feel safe, right? And that's why people are so attracted to confidence. Because they think if this person's confident, they must know something I don't know. And so they automatically give authority to confidence, even if it's a show. Well, and I think that's why, like a lot of what was going on with Trump. I mean, I think a lot of people looked at him, knew absolutely he was a bully, but they're thinking, well, if I vote, then he'll be my bully, and he'll stand between me and whatever threat. And that's not true. However, that is what's going on. If he's the big tough guy, then as long as I have him between me and whatever's out there, then it must be okay. They're not realizing that you're not safe with this guy. It's just okay. They don't think that way.
So safe is ability to protect yourself, or to recognize.
It's the ability to recover from wounds.
To recover.
If you think, because
Yes.
so you could walk and trip and fall. Like you can't, like that stuff like that is going to happen. So it isn't that you will never trip and fall. It's that if I trip and fall, I'll be fine. I'll deal with it. I'll be okay. I will pick myself up. I'll do what I need to do. I will be okay. It's trusting you, and I mean trust as in predicting your behavior. It's trusting yourself to deal with it.
And that flips the whole thing around, because we grew up believing safe meant protecting you from those things happening.
Right.
And then afterwards, if it did happen, you're in big trouble.
Well, and
This flips it around to those things will happen in your life, but you can protect.
and you'll be okay. Your shit's going to happen, and you'll be fine. That's the bottom line, and that's where the true inner peace comes from. Because inner peace doesn't mean there's no turmoil in your life. Inner peace means in the turmoil, you'll know I'll be okay. And whether it's this too shall pass, right? Or it's okay, it's lots of stuff going on around me, I'm fine. Either one. Sometimes you're not fine. That needs to be okay, because if you're trying to achieve I'm always fine, it's artificial. Shit happens, right? And now the fun part is, the more you can trust yourself, the less you need shit to happen. right?
I think, Trish, we talked about this before, and I said at the time that, okay, here I am, 60-some years old, and I've lived through a lot in my life.
Yep.
And I've always dealt with it, and so on. So what's the difference here then? Is it that I've managed to get myself through it, not necessarily always dealt with the emotion?
Well, part of it is dealing with the emotion,
Okay.
and the other, and part of it is, letting go of that innocent self to recognize, to accept you as you are now, the person who's come through this, okay? And then another big piece is you got through it not necessarily to take care of you. You got through it because that's what you do. You put one foot in front of the other and you keep going.
Yeah.
That's different than I will take care of me.
Okay.
That's different than I will recognize that I'm sad and I will comfort me. I will, recognize I'm hurting,
Okay.
which is totally different than
Yeah.
I will just get up and motor on,
Yeah.
because that's what we do,
Yeah. Okay.
right?
Yeah. Because I think we don't recognize sometimes how strong we
Truly are.
been. And
Yeah.
So,
Well, and there's been a lot of motoring on.
yeah.
And that in and of itself is not wrong, because, you deal with what you're dealing with. And it may be in the moment. If you have a flat tire, it isn't necessarily useful to sit down and cry about it then. You can if you need to. However, getting yourself set up with whatever you're going to do to deal with the situation is probably a good way, and cry later. And that's part of your capacity to say, I'm safe with me. I trust me that I'm not just going to go home and shut all this down. I'll go home, and if I need to have a little cry, I'll do that. Or if I need to say, I want whatever, CAA. I don't want to be in this position where I have to worry about that. That kind of thing, right? And
So you're not just going to deal with it, you're going to take care of you
yes,
as well.
yes, and recognize, is there wounding, right? Is there wounding? And you can tell by the emotion, right? So learning how to know what you're feeling. We worked hard for that, right? Recognizing, okay, this is not resolving. And those little important things like, okay, I've tried to let this go. Why isn't it letting go? Like if I've given it all the right thing, I did unlock. Why isn't it letting go? It means your aim is off. If you try to let something go and it isn't going, then the thing that you think you're letting go of is not the thing that's the problem, right? Not the thing that's the problem. Sometimes that's it's simple, like, this person hurt me, and I want to let go of all that. Well, if it isn't clearing, it's probably not the fact that they hurt you. It's probably the fact that you let it happen. You put yourself in a position to be hurt. That's what you're upset about. So it's different than what you thought is the problem, right? Sometimes that's, as I said before, like if you go back with timeline and look at what was happening with the 2-year-old, because whether you're 2 or 42, there's going to be distortion in your perception because you were in it. You were in it. You can't see that forest, right? So when you go back and you can look at it from that step back view, you can say, oh, that's what's going on. Oh. And that's why we do the work, because it's giving us that capacity to look a different way. Right? Okay. Yep. Do we do any other kind? Fair.
Well, I keep thinking of all these words from my childhood, like indulgent.
Yes.
And
Don't be greedy. Don't be selfish. Don't be lazy. Don't be whatever it is
all these things
that they need to get you to do what they want.
that, and also if you thought about self-care,
Yes.
it was indulgent, it was this, that.
Right?
Instead of just moving forward with
Yep.
everybody else's needs in mind.
Yep.
Interesting.
I mean, there's so much church stuff that is about sacrifice. Like you're taught that this is how you be a good person. is if you sacrifice and you do for others and don't think about yourself. And, you know,
I've been writing about that last day or two,
yeah,
posting stuff on this,
yes,
posting on Facebook, that it is none of my business what other people think about me.
yes.
Now, how does this apply with harassment?
Well, now we're back to you have to protect yourself. It's not appropriate to allow it.
Oh, I can't remember. Okay. So I don't have to be safe with harassment?
It's about knowing you can protect you. What do you need to do to protect you? You know, I will figure this out. I will make it stop. I will do what I need to do to deal with it. It's interesting. I got bit by a dog. See, I look a little. I have a little mark, right? I drop kicked the dog right across the room. Hmm? No, no, it was somebody else's dog.
Oh,
Yeah,
dogs went after you?
yeah. And I've never had that. Was bizarre. And it was a very interesting experience because there were all sorts of reasons that happened, and I understand all the reasons. I mean, it didn't break the skin, right? I checked it. There was no blood or anything. It's a scratch. Yeah, little ankle biter. And he jumped like up as high as my shoulder. And it was interesting because for so many years when things like that startled me, I would freeze and not act. And I kicked this dog. I mean, I didn't hurt it because he didn't squeal like he was hurt or anything. I just got him off me. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I didn't freeze. I stopped it. Right?
Validation.
Oh, yeah. And the owner was apologizing, and I'm like, no, that's not okay. And you can say sorry all you like. You need to train your dog because this is not okay. Well, and I found it interesting because they wanted me to say it was okay. That's what they wanted from me, and I refused to do it. You know, like, no, I don't care. Like, sorry doesn't fix this. This dog is not okay. You know, yeah, yeah. And it was a dog that's typically locked up. It was a fluke, and it's like, no, right? This is not.
It was there for a reason. You had to learn that you're not going to freeze it.
Well, and I did, like I said, and it was an interesting thing for me to realize, like it was an instant, not even a thought. That thing went flying. I thought, see, right? And what it showed me was that beyond, like, because I'm used to going, okay, now I see this threat. Now I have, what's my strategy and stuff. That means I've wired it in. I've wired it in to protect myself. So I was really like patting myself on the back, like, damn, that's good. Because it's nice to see it become an automatic. I was so pleased. I thought, all right then, it's now automatic. I really like that. Right? I don't think the dog was impressed, and that's okay. That wasn't my problem. And yeah, just fascinating. Just fascinating. And pardon me. As we learn to recognize, oh, that's actually a threat. Like, that's a whole learning process by itself to identify. Yeah, no, that is in fact a threat. Someone being rude to you is a threat. Someone being passive aggressive, that's a threat. And to learn to recognize it as a threat is a whole learning process. And then choosing, like building your ability to choose how to interact with it is a whole learning process. And then as you gain that, you gain the ability to be strategic. Well, okay, how do I want this effect? Like, what effect do I want to have on this? Right? And so it's interesting to see that evolution in yourself, right? How much more you recognize of what's going on than you used to, and how much you're capable of thinking in situations where you used to just react, right? And it's ironic because this is a kind of a graduation that there was no thinking involved. This was an instant reaction, like, boof, gone. You're just gone from me. And
People are
To dropkick?
They are.
Yeah, seriously.
We're not allowed. It's still not allowed.
Well, it was interesting. I was at a social event, and this guy interrupted a conversation, and I went, "You're not doing that." So I stomped on him, and he didn't go away. And I thought, "Excuse me? You know, I stomped on you. Why didn't you go away?" He's a lawyer. He's a lawyer, so he gets stomped on like on a daily basis. It's part of his. He didn't even notice, and so I said, "Okay, fold my arms. This is working. This is happening. You know, what do I need to do?" It took me four things. Like it took me four statements before he just turned and walked away, and I didn't say anything rude. You know, I wasn't confrontational. I was just like, "Nope, this is not happening," and he just walked away, and it's a process for me. And I thought, okay, do I want to do I want to find more lawyers to practice with this to develop that skill? And I thought, I don't think I need that. I don't know. I'll ponder it, but like I really, how often am I going to interact with that kind of stuff? Do I care? Like it worked. It just took me a little. I had to figure it out. It took me a little longer than it normally would, right? The thing is, there's like, what if I run into, I don't know, something else that is sort of more immune to this kind of strategy? Well, I would consider that a different kind of a different kind of effect, right?
Run and hide is good with that.
Right? You know, the thing is, there's always going to be people who don't do the norm, and so if I try and, I don't know, sharpen my teeth on lawyers or whatever, that doesn't mean it'll work the same way on somebody else. What I have to do, and what I took away from it was, notice immediately, which I did. I noticed immediately that this guy wasn't responding the way typically people would. And then I found out why, almost instantly. And so then I was just like, well, okay, I'll try that. No, that didn't work. Okay, I'll try that. And then the fourth one worked. So, okay, all right. I think if it was any kind of, like just people who don't react typically, you're always going to have to do a little bit of that, checking it out to see what's going to happen, right?
Confrontation is his comfort zone.
It's his job,
Yeah.
right? And he better be good at it. And you know, if he backed down from me, and I wasn't aggressive about it, I just, you know, I was doing what would typically just make people wander off, right? I mean, once he figured out, he left. You know, like it's not like he tried to fight about it. I just had to find the right flavor.
Did you, was it something you said, or was it an energy thing you did?
Both.
Both.
It's always both. Like, and that was me figuring it out and experimenting. It's like, okay, that, no, okay, all right, what about this? You know, and yeah, very interesting. It was just a very interesting experience. But then that's how we learn, right? And I don't think you can prepare for all the scenarios, because that's that false trying to achieve safe. It's not the truth of safe. The truth of safe is I trust myself to sort it out and figure it out, right?
But you were safe with confrontation.
Right? And it's
Everything, right? Yeah, be safe.
Be safe with confrontation.
right, and it doesn't mean I like it. However, I'm not going to back down,
Yeah.
right?
I just read that.
Right? It doesn't.
Conflict does not mean violence.
Exactly.
And we react as if we're going to get punched in the face.
Yes. Well, and what he also, conflict does not mean violence. Yeah, conflict does not mean, that's from Science of No. And, and what he talks about is the reason we behave like that, the reason we have that flinch kind of reaction is because there are people who will escalate. And you don't know how far they will go. All someone has to do to get you to back down is to escalate out of your comfort zone. That's all they have to do. And there are people who will go from 0 to 100 just to get you out of their face, right? And they're the ones who they would punch you in the face, or running away. It's like protecting yourself, because sometimes running away, deciding to run away or reflex running away, is recognizing you don't have the resources to deal with this person. I always thought if somebody punched me in the face, I'd probably be stunned and not know what to do next. And so that's not a useful thing to put myself, it's not useful to put myself in that position. Get me out of there fast, right?
That's why taking self-defense type courses.
It gives you more capacity to think. Yeah, more capacity to think, more ability to protect yourself. Right?
And from that, it doesn't mean that you'll remember all the moves, but you will remember that you have been hit, and survived.
That's right. That's right. It's a key thing.
I never know. One of my sisters, when she was a single mother for a while, and she's mama bear to the nth degree, and she was dating this fella who she thought was the ideal guy, and one day he hit her.
Oh, wow.
And she said, she'd always said, if anybody ever hits me, I'll just wham them down, and she would, but she said, he hit that and he stunned me so much, and all I could think of was, he's between me and my kids.
Yeah.
And she said, I just turned around, you're out of the house right now. She didn't touch him, and she said she just got him out the door.
Remove the threat.
Yeah.
Because that was more important than
Yeah.
getting her own back, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, but she
Manage the threat.
I was shocked, because she said, I always was, I swore I would have just killed him right then and there, but she said.
The kids.
Kids mattered more.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so the fact that she was able to think,
Yeah.
perfect, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because so much of it is you go into reaction, you don't think.
Well, if you're not used to being attacked, if you're not used to having people say nasty things to you,
Yeah.
In odd circumstances.
Yeah.
If you walk in the bar, there's regulars are you probably odd, IKEA,
Yeah, it's
having
just,
been at a hockey game just the other night, so it was kind of
right? Yeah, what's the protocol?
yeah, that was okay, what's the importance,
And who's around you.
yeah, just around me, and are they on his side or are they on my side?
Right? All of this is important information,
Yeah, so it's like.
right?
When you're on your own, it's to be aware.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're in an environment, because you said, is he a client? Is he important? Are these people going to protect me or side with me, or are they going to attack me too? It's really useful in that to burst into tears, because you're going to find out real fast who's well, and I'm not a crier, so it would be hard for me to do. But if you think it would automatically, the people who are going to go in to protect are going to go in to protect, right? Right? And they're automatically going to make him the bad guy, because what happened? Why? What did you do to her to make her cry? It's.
Vulnerable is a protective strategy.
And you're invoking resources, you're invoking instincts,
5-year-old said, "Mommy, don't hit me."
Yep,
When mother said, "No, you can't have the candy."
right,
In public.
right. Talk about manipulative, right? And so this is,
Tears as a defense.
well, and because you thought, how do I stand? How do I take care of me? Didn't even occur to you invoke resources. You did say, do I have resources? Not, yeah, and that's really cool. You got to, do I have any resources? different than invoking them. You know, how do I call these people into action, right? Right?
Without feeling bad.
Or wussy for invoking tears. Or sort of like a wuss for
Truly strategic.
I agree, but
Truly.
it would take some work to
Yeah.
stop it.
You're calling on protective energy.
Right? You're pushing their buttons to go into protector. Like it's, because I gotta tell you, like if they did something and you start screaming at them, then you're the bad guy. Right? No. And I'm saying, like, think, what are your options? Right?
So let's look at this a little differently. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that was for instance, what happens if somebody, like, as we talked about this week, they bring on tears?
Yes.
Right?
They're crying because they're trying to manipulate you.
Right. So
Yes.
how does that work that way?
Well, and so you understand, they're deliberately doing this. They're trying to invoke guilt. They're trying to invoke all of these things. And the key thing is for you to recognize this is not in my territory. You know, their state, their emotional state, not my problem. And
My boss, I just left, that's what she did this week. She brought me to her office and started crying and all upset she was that I was leaving and I didn't know what to do.
yep. So like ideally in that moment, you'd say, you know what, you're upset. This is not the time to talk. I'll see you later, and get out right fast. And just leave it like, oh, you're upset. I'll leave you to it.
Think about it. That's all I said.
No, because that's implying and that's implying that it's going to have an effect, because then she'll escalate. And you solved it because you did the next step.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's in that moment, it's like, you know, I'll just leave you alone so you can calm down. And what you're saying is, this is not working, and I'm not catering to it. I'm out of here, right? Because she's not in danger, you know. Right? It's not like it's a little kid that's hurting, and you might say, well, okay, now I have to manage this. It's like, nope, you have fun with that. Not your territory. Okay.
So she was trying to both protect her and her.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It all stops for me to stay. All stops.
Yeah.
So Trish, you had told us before that the male, when he attacks, goes into wounded child. Would that be what she was doing, going into wounded child energy when she starts to cry, or not?
No, I think she was in pure manipulation.
Okay.
I think if she'd gone wounded child, you would have had a much harder time. And that doesn't mean that you should take it on at all, you know. Yeah.
When males attack, they go in wounded child.
Yeah. So a lot of times when, you know, when women are hurt by males, including rape, a lot of times the guy goes into wounded child.
Oh,
And-
it's pity for
Well, no, what he's coming from, the place he's acting from when he does that act of violence, is he's in the state of a wounded child, and he's acting from that state. And so the lashing out and the attack is coming from a wounded child. So the women don't defend themselves.
because they recognize the wounded child.
They want to comfort him. And so they will let the guy hurt them, let the guy rape them, because they're trying to comfort the wounded child, and they won't fight back because it's child energy. No, it's totally not aware of it. Definitely a lot of what's going on. I mean, I've had so many people confirm that. And yeah.
I find I'm getting better. I have an acquaintance who burst into tears, and I'm getting better with the tears part, and I can sit there and sort of just be for a bit.
Yeah.
But then I get angry after.
Yes. Because you were vulnerable and you didn't feel safe.
I was vulnerable while they were crying.
Yes.
She attacked
Yeah, because
you by crying.
they're trying to manipulate you, right?
Interesting. Okay, wait, you're gonna have to say that.
Yeah. So they're crying.
Yeah.
Okay, you feel vulnerable, and it may not be that they're specifically, like, it may not be that they're trying to manipulate, like this person was. It may be that they're trying to invoke something from you. So, like the story that's in Vulnerable, in Andrew's book Vulnerable, is he says, you know, if you go for coffee with a friend and you tell them your troubles, and they respond with criticism. So, like, why did you let that happen? Or, why didn't you do something, right? when they respond with criticism, what that means is that they don't want the burden of your emotion. And it means they don't consider that in their territory. So you are trying to invoke false intimacy. You know, you're not part of their territory. Your emotion is not part of their territory. So when you try and look for sympathy or even look, you know, to bend their ear or whatever, they reject it. And the criticism is the rejection. You know, this is not in my territory. So think about that. When someone's crying like that, they're asking for you to give them your emotional energy, your emotional.
And so I've gotten good about saying, not my circus, not my monkeys.
Yes. The thing is, they're still trying to get you to do it. So it's still an attack.